Family reunions are supposed to be about laughter, hugs, and the kind of stories that only get better with time. But for me, the word reunion always came with a knot in my stomach. Maybe you know the feeling, the way old wounds can resurface, the way you can feel like an outsider in your own family, no matter how hard you try to fit in. This year, though, something happened that changed everything. It started with a phone call from my mom, and it ended with a moment I'll never forget. A moment that proved sometimes you have to create your own place at the table. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Nancy, and for as long as I can remember, family gatherings have been complicated. I'm the middle child, sandwiched between my overachieving older brother, Mark, and my effortlessly charming younger sister, Lily. Growing up, I always felt like I was trying to catch up, trying to be noticed, to be included, to be enough. My mom, well-meaning as she was, had a way of making me feel like I was always just a little bit out of step. So when the annual family reunion rolled around, I was both excited and anxious. It was supposed to be the first time in years that everyone would be together. Cousins flying in from out of state, aunts and uncles I hadn't seen since I was a kid, even grandma, who rarely left her house anymore. I imagined the laughter, the food, the late-night conversations. I imagined, just for once, feeling like I truly belonged. But then, the phone call. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was just finishing up dinner when my phone buzzed. My mom's name flashed on the screen. I answered, expecting to hear her usual rundown of who was bringing what dish, or maybe a gentle reminder not to be late. Instead, her voice was tight, almost rehearsed. "Amanda, I think it might be best if you sit this one out this year," she said, not quite meeting my ear with her words. "There's just a lot going on. I don't want any drama." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I tried to laugh it off, to ask what she meant, but she just repeated herself, softer this time. "It's just easier this way. Maybe next year." I hung up, numb. I replayed the conversation over and over, searching for some hidden meaning, some clue as to what I'd done wrong. Was it the argument we'd had last month? The fact that I'd moved out on my own instead of staying close to home? Or was it just that, once again, I didn't quite fit the mold my family expected? The days that followed were a blur. I watched as my siblings posted about the upcoming reunion on social media, sharing inside jokes and plans for matching t-shirts. My cousins texted in the group chat, making plans for karaoke and late-night movies. And me, I felt invisible, erased from the family narrative. But as the initial shock faded, something else took its place. A spark of defiance, a stubborn refusal to let this be the end of my story. If my mom didn't want me at the reunion, fine. But that didn't mean I had to spend the weekend alone, nursing old wounds. Maybe, just maybe, I could do something different. Maybe I could create my own reunion, a place where everyone was welcome, where no one had to wonder if they belonged. The idea started small. I texted a few friends, people who'd become like family over the years. "Hey, want to come over this weekend? I'm thinking of having a little get-together." The responses were immediate and enthusiastic. "Absolutely! Count me in! What should I bring?" Emboldened, I reached out to a few cousins, the ones who'd always made me feel seen, even when the rest of the family didn't. To my surprise, they were just as excited. Honestly, I was dreading the big reunion. It's always so tense. Your place sounds way more fun. Before I knew it, my little get-together had turned into a full-blown event. People offered to bring food, games, even a karaoke machine. Someone suggested a potluck, and suddenly my kitchen was overflowing with homemade dishes and laughter. The energy was different, lighter, freer, full of possibility. As the day of the official reunion approached, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Part of me still longed for my mom's approval, for the sense of belonging I'd always craved. But another part of me, the part that had been overlooked and underestimated for so long, felt stronger than ever. I was creating something new, something that belonged to me. The morning of my own reunion, I woke up early, heart pounding with anticipation. I decorated the house with string lights and photos from past gatherings, moments of joy, of connection, of family in all its messy, beautiful forms. I set the table with mismatched plates and colorful napkins, a patchwork of memories and hope. As guests began to arrive, the house filled with laughter and music. Friends hugged me at the door, cousins brought stories and inside jokes, and even a few neighbors stopped by, drawn in by the sound of celebration. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not as the outsider, but as the host, the connector, the heart of the gathering. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, I found myself moving from room to room, making sure everyone had what they needed. The kitchen was alive with the clatter of dishes and the aroma of homemade casseroles and pies. In the living room, a group of friends had already started a board game, their laughter echoing down the hallway. Out on the patio, my cousins were deep in conversation, catching up on years of missed moments. It was everything I'd hoped for: warm, welcoming, and real. I paused for a moment, taking it all in. There was a time when I would have felt out of place at my own party, worried about whether people were having fun or if I was doing enough. But today, something was different. I felt grounded, present, and genuinely happy. Maybe it was because I'd finally stopped trying to fit into someone else's idea of family and started building my own. As the day went on, more people arrived. Some I hadn't seen in years, others who had only recently become part of my life. Each new arrival brought a fresh burst of energy, a reminder that family isn't just about blood or tradition. It's about the people who show up, who care, who make you feel like you matter. At one point, I caught my cousin Rachel standing in the hallway, looking at the photos I'd hung up. She smiled when she saw me. "You know, Amanda, I think this is the best reunion I've ever been to. There's no pressure, no drama, just good people and good food." Her words meant more than she knew. For so long, I'd measured my worth by how well I fit into my family's expectations. But here, in this space I'd created, I realized that I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I could just be myself, and that was enough. As the evening approached, the party shifted outside. Someone started a bonfire in the backyard, and soon everyone was gathered around, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The air was filled with the sound of music and laughter, the kind of easy joy that comes from being surrounded by people who truly care. I found myself sitting next to my friend Jess, who had always been there for me through thick and thin. She nudged me with her elbow. "You know, Amanda, I think this is the best reunion I've ever been to. There's no pressure, no drama, just good people and good food." Her words meant more than she knew. For so long, I'd measured my worth by how well I fit into my family's expectations. But here, in this space I'd created, I realized that I didn't have to prove anything to anyone. I could just be myself, and that was enough. As the night wore on, the conversation turned to memories. Funny stories from childhood, embarrassing moments, and the kind of confessions that only come out when you feel truly safe. I listened, laughed, and shared my own stories, feeling more connected than I had in years. At one point, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. The message was short, almost hesitant. "Hope you're doing okay today." I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to reply with anger or hurt, to remind her of how much her words had stung. But another part of me, the part that had grown stronger over the course of the day, felt something different. Compassion, maybe. Or just the realization that sometimes people act out of fear or insecurity, not malice. I typed back a simple reply: "I'm good, Mom. Hope the reunion is going well." It wasn't much, but it was enough. I didn't need her approval to feel whole anymore. I had found my own sense of belonging, and that was more powerful than any invitation. As the fire burns low and the stars came out, people started to drift inside, settling in for a movie marathon. Blankets and pillows were piled on the floor, and someone made popcorn. The room was filled with the kind of contentment that only comes from a day well spent. I sat back, watching everyone relax and enjoy themselves, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. For the first time, I understood that family isn't about being perfect or fitting into a mold. It's about showing up, being present, and making space for each other's imperfections. As midnight approached, people began to say their goodbyes, hugging me tightly and thanking me for bringing everyone together. My heart was full, not just from the love I'd received, but from the love I'd been able to give.
When the last guest had left and the house was quiet, I sat alone for a moment, reflecting on the day. I thought about the pain of being excluded, the courage it took to create something new, and the joy of seeing it all come together. I realized that sometimes the best way to heal old wounds is to open your heart to new possibilities. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting a golden glow over the remnants of last night's celebration. Empty cups and plates were scattered across the kitchen counter, and the faint scent of bonfires still lingered in the air. I wandered through the house, picking up stray blankets and half-finished board games, smiling at the evidence of a night well spent. My heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. As I tidied up, I replayed the moments from the night before. The laughter, the stories, the way everyone had come together so naturally. It struck me how different this gathering had felt from the reunions of my childhood. There was no forced politeness, no undercurrent of competition or judgment. Instead, there was a sense of ease, of genuine connection. For the first time, I realized that I didn't have to chase after acceptance. I could create it, right here, on my own terms. Later that day, I received a flurry of messages from friends and cousins who had attended. "Thank you for inviting me," one cousin wrote. "I haven't felt that relaxed at a family event in years." Another friend messaged, "You have a gift for making people feel at home. Last night was exactly what I needed." Each message was a small affirmation, a reminder that what I'd done mattered, not just for me, but for everyone who had come. I decided to take a walk, needing some fresh air and time to process everything. As I strolled through the neighborhood, I thought about my mom and the official family reunion. I wondered how it had gone, whether anyone had noticed my absence, or if it had been business as usual. Part of me still ached for her approval, for some sign that she missed me or regretted her decision, but another part of me felt a quiet pride. I had taken a painful moment and turned it into something beautiful. When I got home, I found a voicemail from my Aunt Linda. Her voice was warm and a little conspiratorial. "Amanda, I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I heard about your get-together, and honestly, I wish I'd been there instead. You've always had a way of bringing people together. Don't ever lose that." Her words brought tears to my eyes. For so long, I'd felt like the odd one out, the black sheep. But maybe, just maybe, that was my strength. That afternoon, I sat down with a cup of tea and started jotting down my thoughts. I wrote about the pain of being excluded, the courage it took to reach out, and the unexpected joy of creating my own community. As I wrote, I realized that this experience had changed me. I was no longer waiting for someone else to give me permission to belong. I was claiming it for myself. A few days later, I bumped into my brother Mark at the grocery store. He looked a little sheepish, shifting from foot to foot as we exchanged pleasantries. Finally, he blurted out, "I heard about your party. Sounds like it was a hit." I smiled, trying to keep things light. "Yeah, it was great. Lots of food, lots of laughs. You would have liked it." He hesitated, then said, "The reunion wasn't the same without you. Mom tried to keep things upbeat, but I think everyone felt the gap." His words caught me off guard.
For so long, I'd assumed that my absence wouldn't matter, that I was just a background character in my own family story. But maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe my presence, or lack thereof, had more impact than I realized. We chatted a bit longer, and as we parted ways, Mark gave me a quick hug. "Next time, let me know if you're doing something. I'd like to come." That simple gesture meant more than he knew. It was a small crack in the wall that had separated me from my family, a sign that things could change. Over the next few weeks, I noticed other shifts as well. My cousins started reaching out more often, inviting me to coffee or movie nights. Friends who had attended my reunion began introducing me to their own circles, expanding my sense of community even further. I realized that by opening my home, I'd opened my heart, and others had responded in kind. One evening, as I was scrolling through photos from the party, I got another message from my mom. This time, it was longer, more thoughtful. "I've been thinking about what happened. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I just wanted to keep the peace, but I see now that I made things worse. I hope we can talk soon." Reading her words, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew it would take time to rebuild trust, to heal the wounds that had been opened, but for the first time, I felt hopeful. I had found my own strength, my own voice, and I was no longer afraid to use it. That night, I called my mom. The conversation was awkward at first, full of stops and starts, but gradually we found our way back to each other. We talked about the reunion, about my party, about the ways we'd both felt misunderstood. It wasn't a perfect conversation, but it was a start, a small step towards healing, towards building something new. The weeks that followed felt like a gentle unfolding, as if the world was slowly opening up to new possibilities. My relationship with my mom was still fragile, but there was a new honesty between us. We texted more often, sometimes about little things, recipes, funny memories, updates about family members. Other times we talked about the bigger stuff, like how it felt to be left out, how hard it was to break old patterns, and how much we'd both wanted things to be different. One Saturday, my mom invited me over for coffee. I hesitated, unsure of what to expect, but decided to go. When I arrived, she greeted me with a tentative smile and a hug that lingered just a little longer than usual. We sat at the kitchen table, mugs in hand, and for a while we just talked. No accusations, no defensiveness, just two people trying to understand each other. She admitted that she'd been afraid of conflict, that she thought excluding me would keep the peace. "I didn't realize how much it would hurt you," she said quietly. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I really am." Hearing those words, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I told her how much it had stung me, how I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. But I also told her about the reunion I had hosted, about the laughter and connection, and how it had helped me see myself in a new light. My mom listened, really listened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. We didn't solve everything in that one conversation, but it was a start, a small step towards healing, towards building something new. After that, things began to shift in subtle ways. My mom started including me in family plans again, sometimes even asking for my input. My siblings reached out more often, and the old group chat that once felt like a closed circle now buzzed with new energy. I realized that by standing up for myself, I'd change the dynamic, not just for me, but for everyone. By summer turned to fall, I decided to make my own reunion an annual tradition. I sent out invitations early, letting friends and family know that everyone was welcome. This time, the response was overwhelming. People marked their calendars, offered to help with food and decorations, and even suggested games and activities.
The day of the second reunion arrived, and my house was filled with the same warmth and laughter as before. But this time, there was something different, a sense of anticipation, of excitement for what we were building together. My mom came early to help set up, bringing her famous apple pie and a stack of old family photos. My siblings arrived with their kids, who immediately ran off to play in the backyard. Friends brought new friends, and soon the house was alive with conversation and joy. As I moved through the crowd, I caught snippets of stories, bursts of laughter, the clink of glasses, and the shuffle of feet on the dance floor.
I saw people from different parts of my life connecting, forming new friendships, weaving together a tapestry of community that was richer and more vibrant than anything I could have imagined. At one point, I found myself standing in the kitchen with my mom. She looked around, her eyes shining. "You did this, Amanda," she said softly. "You brought everyone together." I smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "We did this, Mom. All of us." She squeezed my hand, and in that moment, I knew that we had turned a painful chapter into something beautiful. The old wounds were still there, but they were healing, covered over by new memories and new connections. As the evening wore on, we gathered in the living room for a group photo. Someone set up a camera on a timer, and we all squeezed in together. Friends, family, neighbors, even a few pets. As the flash went off, I looked around at the faces beside me and felt a deep sense of gratitude. This was my family, in all its messy, imperfect glory. Later, as the party wound down and people began to say their goodbyes, I stood at the door hugging each guest and thanking them for coming. Many of them lingered, reluctant to leave, already talking about next year's reunion. I realized that what we'd created wasn't just a party, it was a tradition, a new way of being together. That night, as I cleaned up the last of the dishes and turned off the lights, I sat down in the quiet and let the day wash over me. I thought about how far I'd come, about the courage it had taken to stand up for myself, about the love and connection that had grown from that one painful moment of exclusion. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, still moments of doubt and insecurity, but I also knew that I had the strength to face them and the support of a community that truly cared. As the seasons changed and another year passed, the tradition I'd started continued to grow. Each time I hosted my own reunion, the guest list expanded. Friends brought their partners, cousins invited their neighbors, and even a few colleagues from work asked if they could join. What began as a response to exclusion had blossomed into something much bigger, a celebration of belonging, acceptance, and the power of choosing your own family. I found myself looking forward to these gatherings more than any other event on my calendar. The planning became a joy rather than a chore. I would spend weeks collecting recipes, stringing up lights, and curating playlists that would get everyone dancing. People would text me weeks in advance asking what they could bring or how they could help. The sense of community was palpable, and it filled my home with a warmth that lingered long after the last guest had left. One evening, as I was setting up for the third annual reunion, I paused to look around my living room. The walls were lined with photos from past gatherings, snapshots of laughter, hugs, and candid moments that captured the spirit of what we'd built together. I realized that these memories were more than just pictures. They were proof that I had created a space where people felt safe, valued, and loved. My mom arrived early that day carrying a tray of her famous cookies and a new photo album she'd put together. She hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "I'm so glad you didn't give up on us," she whispered. "You taught me what family really means." Her words touched me deeply. I thought back to that first painful phone call, to the feeling of being left out and unwanted. If I had let that moment define me, none of this would have happened. Instead, I had chosen to rewrite the story, to create a new narrative where everyone was welcome and where love was the only requirement for entry. As guests began to arrive, the house filled with the familiar sounds of laughter and conversation. Children ran through the halls, adults swapped stories over plates of food, and music drifted from room to room. There was no tension, no sense of obligation, just genuine joy in being together. At one point, I found myself sitting on the back porch with my brother Mark. He looked out at the crowd, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Amanda, I used to think family was just about blood. But watching you bring all these people together, it's made me realize it's about so much more." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace. "Family is who shows up for you, who makes you feel at home." He nodded, and for a moment we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset over the yard. I felt a deep sense of gratitude. not just for the people around me, but for the journey that had brought me here. The pain of being excluded was real, but it had also been the catalyst for something beautiful. As the evening wore on, we gathered around the fire pit, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Someone started a round of Remember When, and soon the air was filled with laughter and nostalgia. I listened to the stories, some familiar, others new, and marveled at how our lives had become so intertwined. Later, as the stars came out and the party began to wind down, my mom pulled me aside. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm sorry for all the times I made you feel like you didn't belong. I see now how much you've given us, how much you've given everyone here. Thank you for not giving up on family, even when it was hard." I hugged her tightly, feeling the last remnants of old hurt melt away. "Thank you for coming back to me, Mom. I think we both learned a lot." As the last guests said their goodbyes and the house grew quiet, I sat alone for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. I realized that the most important lesson I learned was this: belonging isn't something you wait for someone else to give you. It's something you create, moment by moment, choice by choice. I thought about all the people who had come through my door, some who had felt like outsiders, others who had been searching for connection. In opening my home, I had opened my heart, and in doing so, I had found a sense of family that was deeper and more meaningful than anything I'd known before. As the next year began, I made a promise to myself to keep building, to keep welcoming, to keep choosing love over fear. Because in the end, that's what family is all about. Not just the people you're born to, but the people you choose and the memories you create together. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you found something in it that touched your heart, or if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, just know you're not alone, and you can always create your own place to belong. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that inspire and connect us all. See you in the next video.